According to brand new polling, it appears that Donald Trump is about to sweep the Rust Belt. What is up, people of the internet? It is me, Real American, back again with a new video, and today we have to talk about the 2024 presidential election because it appears that Donald Trump is about to sweep the Rust Belt. Yeah, that's right. Despite what Democrats may claim about the current state of the race and how Kamala Harris is actually up by 15 points everywhere, despite what they claim, Trump is in a very good position to win, and not just win, but potentially sweep the Rust Belt. Now, when I say that, I am not including Minnesota, I am not talking about Illinois, I'm of course talking about Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania. Now, it's entirely possible that Trump could maybe pull off the upset in Minnesota. I'm not denying that, but as of now, I really believe that Minnesota is going to Harris. Maybe it's a lot closer than it should be, but outside of that, I'm just going to assume that Kamala Harris is going to win Minnesota by like 3 to 4 points. Maybe it's a lot closer. Maybe she wins it by like 5 to 6 points. I guess that's possible. But let's talk about Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania. You know, the states that will really decide the election. Because at that point, if Trump is about to flip Minnesota, Trump is probably already winning every other swing state. So if he's about to flip Minnesota, yeah, Trump is going to win the election easily. But in this scenario, and actually my prediction, I still think that Kamala Harris is a clear favorite in Minnesota. But as for the other three, I really believe that there's a good chance that Trump is about to sweep all three of them. Yes, that's not just one of them, not just two of them, but I really believe there's a legitimate possibility Trump could sweep Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania. And let's start with Wisconsin, because when you go to the RCP average right now, it's Harris plus 0.3, which at that point, let's just say it's a tied race. I mean, 0.3 is nothing. That's a sampling error. That's statistical noise. It's a tied race in Wisconsin on the RCP average right now. Yeah, it's a tied race. And for those that don't know, that's a big deal because if you go back to 2020, all right, in 2020, in roughly the same time period, you know, the middle of October, it was Biden plus 6. Yeah, Biden plus 6. For those that don't remember, Biden barely won the state. He won it by like just under 1%. So the polls in Wisconsin at the same time period, all right, middle of October, they had it. Biden plus 6. He was going to win the state easily. These same polls right now in the RCP average, they have the race tied. The same thing happened in 2016. In fact, it was actually a little bit worse. In the middle of October, it was Clinton plus 6, plus 7, plus 6. And, well, she lost the state by 1%. So they were off in 2016 by even more, by roughly 6 to 7%. So if the same error applies in Wisconsin like it did back in 2020, like it did back in 2016, you're talking about Trump plus 7 in Wisconsin. Now, I'm not saying that's going to happen. That's not my official prediction. Because if it's really Trump plus 6, Trump plus 7 in Wisconsin, at that point, he's winning Virginia. He's easily winning Minnesota. It would be a complete landslide for him. I guess it's a possibility, but I'm just trying to provide context for why this Harris plus 0.3 is not good for her. Because if the same polling miss happens, you're talking about Trump plus 5, Trump plus 6, and even if it's only a 2-point miss, hell, a 1-point miss, which at that point, that's just statistical noise, that's a Trump win. That's a Trump win in Wisconsin. So you're not talking about a 7-point miss he needs to barely win. No. If it's a 1-point miss, which is nothing compared to 2020 and 2016, if it's just a 1-point miss in Wisconsin, that's enough for Trump to carry the state. Yeah, a 1-point miss is nothing. That's statistical noise. I mean, if this was a 7-point margin for Harris, that's one thing. But it's barely Harris plus 0.3. And that's with a very shitty poll from Marquette. Which, by the way, for those that say, but Marquette's the gold standard of Wisconsin polling. No, they're not. Marquette's a garbage pollster. They're the only ones right now on the RCP average that found Harris up by 4. Back in 2020, Marquette was garbage. Now, were they better than other pollsters like the New York Times? Yeah, but that doesn't mean they were good. It's like saying, oh yeah, the Marquette poll is less shitty than the New York Times poll. Yes, that's true, but they're still both shit. Just the New York Times was even shittier because they had it Biden plus 11, while Marquette had it Biden plus 5. Yeah, Biden plus 5 was their final poll, which if it was Biden plus 2, that's a good poll. Even plus 3 or 4, that would still be a relatively speaking accurate poll in Wisconsin. Well, they were off by 4 points back in 2020. In 2016, you go back and it was Clinton plus 6. They were even worse back then. So where does this idea come from that Marquette's this great pollster? They're not. Are they better than some other pollsters? Maybe. But that doesn't make them a good pollster. But either way, Marquette's not a good pollster. They're slightly better than others. But apparently, in 2024, they completely reworked their entire methodology. So there's a chance that Marquette could be even worse. I'm not saying it's going to for sure happen, but it's entirely possible. With what Marquette's doing with their polls right now, they changed their methodology, and they were already shitty beforehand. There's a chance they're even worse than 2020. Now, you look at individual polls, you have Trafalgar with a Trump plus 1, Atlas Intel Trump plus 2, Insider Advantage a tied race, Wall Street Journal tied, Emerson tied race. Only 3 polls right now has Harris winning. They have Cook Political Report, the New York Times, and Marquette. Who do you trust more? Trafalgar, Atlas Intel, and surprisingly Quinnipiac. Yeah, Quinnipiac found Trump up by 2 points. Or do you trust Marquette? Do you trust the New York Times? Who do you trust more? I would say Trafalgar. I would trust Atlas Intel way more than Marquette. Now, people are going to say, but Trafalgar's a bad pollster. Listen, they were off in 2018 and 2022, but people just forget that in Wisconsin, Trafalgar was actually spot on. They were the best pollster out of the state. Yeah, their final poll was Biden plus 1. Not Trump plus 5, not Trump plus 6, Biden plus 1. In presidential years in Wisconsin, Trafalgar's one of the best pollsters out there. And they found Biden up by 1 back in 2020, and right now, they have Trump up by a point. Now, could they be off? Maybe. I guess it's a possibility. But what even Atlas Intel, the best pollster out there, they have a Trump plus 2. So the more you look at the current polling in Wisconsin, it looks very good for Trump. Doesn't mean he's for sure going to win. No. But if I had to put money on it, right now, I would say, yeah, Trump is probably going to carry Wisconsin. Because you're not talking about, oh, he needs a 5-point miss to barely win. No, he needs a 1-point miss in the RCP average to win. A 1-point miss. And that's with a shitty pollster like Marquette inflating Harris's number. So there's a chance that Trump is already leading. It just one poll is showing Harris up by 4, and that's causing her to barely hold on to Wisconsin. Which again, compared to 2020 and 2016, these numbers are pathetic for her. They are awful. But fine, Wisconsin isn't everything. Like, okay, Trump might be favored there. What about Michigan and Pennsylvania? Well, look at Michigan right now. It's Trump plus 1. This is not a misquote. This is not a typo. Right now on the RCP average, it's Trump plus 1. Look at this. Insider Advantage, Trump plus 2. Quinnipiac found Trump plus 4. You have Michigan News. They have a Trump plus 1. Trafalgar, Trump plus 2. Even Cook Political Report, Trump plus 2. Atlas Intel, Trump plus 4. So it's not just a single pollster that has Trump winning. It's outside of 3 polls. Every poll in the RCP average has a race either tied or with Trump winning. And the only polls that have Harris winning is the New York Times, Bloomberg, which is one of the worst pollsters out there, and the Wall Street Journal. So at this point, the only way Harris could win Michigan is if there's a polling miss in favor of her. Which, do you think that's going to happen? Do you really think there's going to be a polling miss in favor of Harris in Michigan? Back in 2020, in the same time frame, in the middle of October, it was Biden plus 6, plus 7, plus 8. Yeah, in late October, it was Biden plus 9. Same thing in 2016. In the middle of October, it was Clinton plus 7, plus 11, plus 12. And then at the very end, it got a little bit closer, but still, it was Clinton plus 4. Trump won the state by 0.3. Yeah. So, do you really think that Michigan's going to have a polling miss in favor of Harris? It's entirely possible, but you need a 1-point miss in favor of Harris for her to barely carry Michigan. Is it possible? I guess. Is it likely? Hell no. It's so unlikely for Michigan polls to understate Harris by a point. I just don't think it's going to happen. I really don't. I guess you could say maybe it's statistical noise. Maybe. But the fact is, you have shitty polls like Bloomberg showing Harris up by 3, which is a clear outlier. I mean, the Trump plus 4 and Trump plus 2s, they're not outliers. They're actually the consensus. It's the Harris plus 3s that are outliers. And again, they're not from a good pollster. Bloomberg is a shitty pollster. So when they have Harris up by 3 points, they're probably going to be off by like 5 points. That's how bad they are. But either way, Trump right now in the RCP average is up by a point in Michigan. And that's with some big outliers like Bloomberg, like the Wall Street Journal. At that point, do you really think you're going to see a Harris polling miss in Michigan? Again, it's entirely possible. I'm not denying this, but you need something to happen that hasn't happened in like 12 years to occur. Which again, the last time there was a polling miss in favor of Democrats was when Obama was still running. And that was before the Trump era. So it's entirely possible, but right now, I think Michigan's leaning towards Trump. Could Harris still win it? Absolutely, but right now, the RCP average, you don't even need a polling miss to get Trump ahead. You just need the polls to be actually correct, and he's winning Michigan. Which, if there's even a 2 to 3 point miss in Michigan, which is entirely possible, at that point, Trump is winning Michigan by 3 to 4 points. I mean, that should tell you everything about the race right now. He doesn't even need a polling miss in Michigan to win. Now, there is one more state we have to talk about, and that, of course, is Pennsylvania, which, by most accounts, is the most important swing state of the upcoming election. If you win Pennsylvania, you're probably going to win the presidency. I mean, I just find it so unlikely for Trump to carry Pennsylvania but lose. I don't think it's going to happen. I really don't. So the state of Pennsylvania, it's a must-win for both campaigns, and both campaigns know it. Well, right now on the RCP average, it is currently Trump plus 0.4. Yeah. And nearly every single poll except 2 of them, they found Trump winning Pennsylvania. And the only 2 polls that have Harris winning is Quinnipiac and, of course, Bloomberg. Bloomberg, like I said, is a shitty pollster. They have no clue what the hell they're doing. And just like Michigan, you don't need a polling miss to get Trump ahead. You just need the polls to be correct, and he's winning. And that's with a very shitty poll in Bloomberg inflating Harris's margin. If it wasn't for one poll from Bloomberg, more than likely, you're talking about a Trump plus 1 in Pennsylvania. And it's not just one poll. It's every poll like TIP, like Wall Street Journal, like Emerson, like Insider Advantage, like Trafalgar, Atlas Intel. They all have Trump winning. With a couple of them like Trafalgar and Atlas Intel showing Trump up by 3 points. Yeah, they have Trump plus 3. And Atlas Intel is a good pollster. They know what they're doing. And same with Trafalgar. They might at times have misses in favor of Republicans. I get that. But you go to 2020 and you scroll down here. Trafalgar's final poll in Pennsylvania, it was Trump plus 2, which, okay, they were off by 3 points. Fine. That's kind of a big miss. Well, here's the interesting part. In the same time period, early October, the middle of October, they had a Biden plus 2. This is the thing about Trafalgar. For whatever reason, their polls in like the late parts of September, early October, even the middle of October, for whatever reason, they tend to be way more accurate than their final. I don't know why, but this happens in every state, except Wisconsin, oddly enough. But outside of Wisconsin, every single poll from Trafalgar their polls in October and September, they tend to be much more accurate. In fact, if it was Biden +2. That was their poll in early October. Well, Biden won by a point. Well, right now, it's the middle of October. Well, I guess this was late September, but Trafalgar found Trump +3. Which again, in 2020, in Pennsylvania, they were spot on in late September, early October. So if the same thing happens where they're correct in their late September poll, early October, that's a Trump +3 in Pennsylvania. Which I'm not saying is going to happen, but that's what the polls right now are showing. And that's what Trafalgar found as of a couple weeks ago. Which again, it could be a little bit outdated, but the point is Trafalgar in late September in Pennsylvania, they tend to be way more accurate. But fine, Trafalgar might be off, and maybe the polls in Pennsylvania, maybe they're going to overstate Trump's support. That's a possibility. Well, guess what? Just like Michigan, just like Wisconsin, Pennsylvania polls, they suck. Not as bad as, say, Michigan and Wisconsin, but they can be awful. Like in the middle of September or October, it was Biden +7 in 2020. In 2016, it was even worse. Clinton +9, Clinton +10, +8, +7. These polls are garbage. And at the very end, this happens every year. At the very end of the cycle, magically, the polls in Pennsylvania, they become less shitty. And that's because you have pollsters like Trafalgar finding Trump up by a point. But you still got shitty pollsters like Monmouth and, you know, the New York Times finding Harris up by like 8 or 9 points in Pennsylvania. This happens every year. You have one or two very good pollsters in Pennsylvania, like Trafalgar, and they show Trump winning. Well, the problem is you got polls like Marist, you have polls like Change Research, a lot of shit pollsters. They magically find Harris up by, or Biden up by 4 to 5 points, 7, 10, by ridiculous margins in Pennsylvania. So the average actually looks kind of good, when in reality, it's just because of, like, two pollsters. Two good pollsters finding Trump with a small lead that counteracts the complete bullshit from Change Research, Marist. It happens every year. But the fact is, right now, on the RCP average, Trump is winning Pennsylvania. And just like Michigan, it's not one poll that has Trump with a huge lead. Every poll, except two that has Harris with a lead and two with a tie, every poll in Pennsylvania has Trump with a lead. With one of them having Trump +2 and two of them having Trump +3. Yeah. Is this good news for Harris? No. It's a disaster. Because at that point, you don't even need a polling miss to occur. At this point, you got Trump winning Pennsylvania. And if he's winning Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin, he just needs North Carolina. He just needs Georgia. He just needs Arizona. I mean, for crying out loud, he could win through Nevada, which is not going to happen. I mean, I don't see how Trump loses Georgia, North Carolina, and Arizona, but wins Nevada. But either way, if he is sweeping the Rust Belt, he's got the presidency. He's going to win. And there's a good chance he does sweep the Rust Belt, especially if these polls are actually correct. It's not just they need a polling miss to occur. Outside of Wisconsin, every Rust Belt state, like Michigan and Pennsylvania, you just need the polls to be correct, and it's a Trump win. We'll just see what happens, but Trump's in a very good position to potentially sweep the Rust Belt. There's a chance it happens. Is it for sure going to happen? No. But I would say as of now, he's probably going to sweep the Rust Belt. Anyways, folks, thank you so much for watching. If you guys did enjoy this video, smash the like button down below, subscribe, share with your friends, hit that little bell, follow the social media accounts in the description down below, and of course, join the channel today. Godspeed to all of you.